Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. This has been a bit of a strange week for Nintendo news, so we're going to go over all of that. Then during the main segment, we're actually going to have a little bit of fun while getting the community involved. Joining me for all of that is former Game Informer video editor and the founder of Viewport, Alex Van Aken. Alex, how are you?
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm excited to be here again.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. I've had you on since the show went independent multiple times, so it's always great to have you on. And also, we have a fun topic here, and I know that you know how to have fun as, somebody who has literally traveled the world with me in multiple countries. So
I like fun.
Yes, so we're going to have some fun in the main segment. But first we have to eat our vegetables, and that is the news. But
yes. Okay.
It's weird, though, because it hasn't been extremely busy for Nintendo, but it's been extremely busy for the industry. If you listen to All Things Gamers this week, there were a ton of new releases coming out this very week. But, the only thing that has come out of Nintendo in recent weeks is Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Have you had a chance to try that out yet?
I have. I'd say I'm probably 8 to 10 hours deep. I've completed, of course, the intro area, and I went and beat all of the Gerudo area.
Oh, nice.
So now I'm on my way up to the Water Temple.
All right.
I am very much enjoying it. I think I like it better than Link's Awakening, maybe. I think it's a really, really neat Zelda game. And I love it feels like you're a kid with a toy box. And it's great. So
yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the fact that it's not like that traditional combat? Because that has been a bit of a hurdle for me, if I'm being honest, where it's I really like using the echoes, and I like finding new echoes and figuring out what their utility is. But there are times where I'm just man, I wish I could just storm in with a sword. And I know there is sword fighter form and everything, but having it be so limited, it's it does take me a little aback, right? Where it's this is a Zelda game. I love top-down Zelda games. Man, I wish I could just play it like a traditional Zelda game. But I still appreciate the echo usage.
Yeah. I just like the puzzle element of it all. Even in combat, trying to figure out which echo, I need to use to take down this enemy, or, sometimes very much haphazardly just throwing things down to try to overwhelm an enemy while I go over and get them in sword fighter mode. And yeah, one of the things I've been doing I think I've only upgraded my sword fighter energy. I haven't upgraded any of the damage or anything like that for my sword, because I just want to be able to use that form longer, and in crucial areas. And
it's very powerful.
It is. There's the boss fight in the Gerudo area involves a flying enemy, and it is rough if you don't have sword fighter energy, and there's a way to get it throughout the fight, but it's definitely a slow fight without it. So I that's definitely where I understand your qualms with that part of it, because up until the boss area of that level, it feels great, and then it was this is much. I think it took me literally 10 minutes to beat the boss.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because
that's a drawn out fight.
Yeah, because I just could not get the resources I needed, and maybe I wasn't using the right echoes, but eventually got him down, and it did feel nice to my strategy worked, even though it took me literally 10 minutes, which is a lot for a boss fight in Zelda.
I mean, yeah, even a 3D Zelda game, which has so many more intricate combat situations, 10 minutes is a long time to fight a single enemy.
Yeah, I mean, and in a Link's Awakening style boss, you're talking maybe 2 minutes, right? 2 to 3 minutes max. So it was definitely, I definitely felt it there. But other than that, I've just been having such a blast finding new echoes and solving puzzles, and yeah, I think it's a really good game. So I'm excited to keep playing. I'm going to the Water Temple next, and I've heard that's a really cool part of the map. So
it's a nice change of pace, having the Water Temple be a good one of the better
I've heard
that.
Yeah, I've heard I started with one of folks' least favorite areas.
Mm.
So I'm excited to, if I enjoyed it that much, I'm excited to go to one that everyone has told me is great things about the water area. So yeah, it just feels good to be playing a Zelda game again, 2D Zelda game
What
again.
is your favorite 2D Zelda
Well, not
game?
even 2D, it's 3D now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, top
Top
down.
down, top down Zelda. There we
What
go.
is your favorite top-down Zelda?
Um, man, I really like Oracle of Ages. But I think it's probably just Link to the Past. I love Link to the Past, and it's the one I go back to the most. And I think it just, and I didn't even play it as a kid. I played it
Yeah.
as like a teenager, and so I have even less nostalgia for it than other Zeldas. But yeah, I just always go back to Link to the Past.
It's a good one.
I know that's the boring answer. That's the one that everybody
It's
says.
arguably one of the greatest video games ever created. Like for a
Yeah,
long time, like it was considered like the most perfect video game.
I just love the pixel art in that game. And
It's
I
peak
particularly,
SNES visuals.
oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Although I have been playing Minish Cap. I started Minish Cap earlier this year, and I've never played it before, and I'm really enjoying it. So maybe that has the potential to usurp A Link to the Past, but TBD on that.
I mentioned this last week's episode, but I also started Minish Cap recently on the Nintendo Switch Online catalog.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm not very far, but I've gotten absorbed into a million other things.
I know, I know.
We were talking before we started recording about how busy we are in unemployment, but like I mentioned this at the start of the show, the intro, that after Game Informer was closed, you founded Viewport, which is a video game documentary operation, which, like this very show, is also supported by Patreon.
Yep.
You want to talk a
And
little bit about what you have cooking over there?
yeah, it's actually a good week to come on All Things Nintendo because my first video is finally going to go up. It's to be honest, I'm a little I wish I had gotten videos up sooner, but it's just we were all thrown into this, and I've finally getting to a point where I'm balancing out Viewport with stuff that brings in money, like freelance for my household, because both me and my partner, me and my wife are unemployed. So it's been an interesting couple months, but things are really firing up. And yeah, so my first video going up is a really cool video feature featuring Darren Korb.
Yeah, nice.
It's a really neat interview, and I've really edited the heck out of it.
And just for people who may not be familiar, he's the composer of all the Supergiant games. So
Yeah,
like Bastion,
Bastion.
Transistor, Hades.
Yep.
So yeah.
Hades 2. So we get into a lot of the nitty gritty, like what synths he's using on this soundtrack. And we tried to go a lot deeper than just, surface level questions. And it was a really good interview. So that's going up in the next couple days. And Viewport Patreon supporters get access to the extended interview. But there's a really nice, tightly edited video feature coming out. And then also I've been working on a number of other documentaries, and I just locked in a documentary in early November for one of my favorite indie games of all time.
Oh wow, look at you.
So I'm really excited. Things are picking up, and yeah, I'm excited just for people to kind of see the things I've been working on the last couple months. It's going to be
Yeah.
cool. So
Also, speaking of video game composer, I don't do this enough, but I want to shout out Tee Lopes for creating the theme
yeah,
song of this very podcast. So shout out Tee Lopes, amazing
shout out to Tee
guy.
Lopes. The theme song is so good, and the rest of his other work is also
Oh
great.
yeah, I mean,
Obviously,
incredible catalog of work and a pretty young career as well. So like
hmm
he's just like skyrocketed. So yeah, I just wanted to thank him while we were on the topic of game composers. But if people are interested in this, where can they support you?
yeah, you can just follow me on Instagram and Twitter at It's Van Aken. That's the main way to follow my work. That's my personal account. I'm always posting, unfortunately for you. And if you want to get involved with Viewport, you can go over to viewport.com, or rather patreon.com/viewport video, or check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@viewport video.
How do
So
you
yeah,
feel about the at signs
I
in the
hate it.
URLs?
I hate it. I'm still figuring out how to eloquently say it. I usually just say youtube.com/viewport video and put the @ symbol in front of the username.
Ugh.
But I don't. Yeah, it's just like, what is
Why do
that?
we
What
need
is that thing
that?
called? Why is it? What is it actually called?
It's like an at symbol, I think.
Is
I
that
don't
it?
know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like
There's an
it.
old video. I think it's Good Morning America, where it was like in 1994 or 1995, and they were like reading like, oh, you can email us at GMA, and they didn't know what the at symbol was, and they're trying to like read off like what an email is, and they're like, oh, this is like that email thing that like people are talking about. It's getting really popular, and
That's funny.
and then it spawns the famous quote of "What is internet?"
I
It's a very good
gotta
clip.
look that up.
Yeah, you should absolutely look that up. Just search "What is internet?" That'll probably bring it up pretty easily.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but yeah, so go support Alex on Patreon, and also that segues perfectly into the fact that you can support all things Nintendo through several different methods. The Patreon being the best way. You can get early and ad-free episodes, access to the community Discord, which we are going to be relying on heavily during the main segment, priority for Q&A episodes and hot takes episodes like this one. And if you come in at the $10 level, you get an entire second weekly podcast called All Things Gamers. You can also support me by buying merch at tpublic.com or YouTube channel, which is you can at Brian P. Shea. Unfortunately, it also has the at sign in the URL there. Yeah, YouTube and Threads are the ones that I've noticed do the at sign in the
Yeah.
URL. It's really,
Yeah.
what does
I
it
wish
add
we
to it?
could. I think YouTube just ran out of URL
But then you have an at in front of
opportunities.
everyone, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
old accounts don't have the @
Oh well,
Yeah, it's only accounts registered since like 2021, I think.
it's like when they ran out of phone numbers, and they're like, okay, everybody has to type their area code no matter where you are. Because it used to be you just
Exactly.
had to type like the 7-digit if it was like a local call,
Yeah.
and now it's like, okay, well now you have to enter the 3-digit area code for even if you're calling your next door neighbor.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
old. Alex, decent amount of news this week, and the big stories are pretty strange, if I'm being honest. If you told me on Monday of this week that the two biggest Nintendo stories of the coming week would involve an alarm clock and Green Day, I would have been very confused. But fast forward to Thursday, which is when we're recording this episode, and I'm still very confused. But let's dig into it. All right, so Wednesday morning, Nintendo put out a surprise announcement of its new hardware. So people were very excited to hear about new hardware from
Switch
Nintendo.
2.
Nintendo Sound Clock: Alarmo. The announcement was made through a nearly 5-minute video showcasing a Nintendo created alarm clock and its various features. So has an LCD screen that shows you the time, the date, and when your alarm is set for, as well as like characters. And then there's also a motion sensor. And why would you need a motion sensor, you may ask? Because when the alarm goes off, it plays music from the game that you select, and it tracks your motion and makes sound effects as you kind of toss and turn. And then you can even wave your hand to make it quieter. Or if you like just lay in bed and you outlast the alarm, it'll go into a brief snooze period. And the more times you snooze, the more intense the alarm will get. Like it was showed like, Mario and Peach were trying to wake up this person, and then like the person just wouldn't wake up. So Bowser showed up and it got really intense, which is actually very funny. And then there's also a button mode if you don't want to use the motion sensor. And then there's gentle, which is just like a quieter alarm mode. Basically, like I was reading this developer Q&A that Nintendo put out about this. And it was like, yeah, we realized that like steady mode was like the best for most people, but like some people were startled by how like loud it can get. So we did gentle mode as well. Once you get out of bed, the motion sensor actually realizes it. It like sees you're out of bed and it stops the alarm and it plays a victory fanfare, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
And then in addition to the alarm functionality, it also has an hourly chime, which, very 90s of Nintendo to do that. And it can play sleepy sounds that can help you go to sleep. And it also tracks your sleeping patterns and keeps records for how much time you've spent in bed or moving in your sleep, which that might be the most helpful aspect of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at launch, Alarmo will feature 5 games to choose from with 7 songs for each game. The games available at launch are Super Mario Odyssey, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Pikmin 4, Ring Fit Adventure, and Splatoon 3. And Nintendo has also announced that a free post-launch update for your alarm clock, I'm just going to let that sentence breathe
Yep.
for a second.
Yep.
A free post-launch update for your alarm clock will add songs and sound effects from Mario Kart 8 and Animal Crossing New Horizons.
I was gonna say, where's Animal Crossing? That's the only reason that's what I'm gonna buy it for, if I buy it for anything.
So I have to say, my first reaction after the initial what? It took me back to my experience in the Game Informer office. So, I used to have, before Apple had like bedtime, where like, your iPhone would play like a pleasant alarm. You actually had
Mm.
to set what your alarm tone was. And mine happened to, my wake up alarm tone happened to match that of former Game Informer editor Kim Wallace's ringtone.
Oh no.
So I would be sitting there doing my work, just minding my own business, and Kim would get a call, and it would be like a bolt of electricity through my body. And it was like I would have like a physical reaction to her ringtone because it matched the tone that is waking me up. So basically, like, I feel like you might develop a similar visceral reaction to these songs that come on from games that you presumably love. And I worry what that will mean if, like, I hear that song when I'm playing Breath of the Wild and the song that wakes me up comes on.
That's exactly why I will not use this device, because I am terrified it's going to make me hate a lot of songs that I love, especially Animal Crossing.
Yeah, such
Um,
good music too.
I know. That's my biggest fear, because I have done the ringtone game, I've done the alarm game with fun sounds, and it is a risky move.
Mm-hmm.
My ringtone is the eShop theme, and
Yeah, I've been around you when you've gotten calls, and
yeah,
yeah.
and that's like pushing it. I still like that. It hasn't made me hate it, but I can't imagine an alarm with
But a
the eShop.
ringtone and an alarm tone are very different.
They are. One is very authoritative. The other is optional,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I do
also,
well with authority.
I've got to ask, why does your phone make any sounds whatsoever in 2024? Like, I don't think my phone has made a sound, with my permission for probably 6 years at this point.
It's because I have anxiety. I'm terrified I'm going to miss an important call.
Also, I silence all unknown numbers on my phone.
Oh, I should do that.
It's an amazing feature because I get so many spam calls.
So do I. So do I. I'm gonna add that to my to-do list today.
Yes, you should. So regarding Alarmo, I've seen the sentiment online, but it does feel pretty weird to me that this is coming out so soon after Pokemon Sleep.
Yeah.
Like, is it weird that like they're putting out a similar type of like sleep-based hardware and it doesn't have any functionality with Pokemon Sleep?
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be cool if there was some sort of integration.
There's no
Um,
Pokemon songs in the games available either.
oh, huh.
That's just a strange thing that like they've both put out sleep related things. I think Pokemon Sleep was this year. If not, it was late last year.
Yeah, maybe Pokemon Company didn't want to kind of cannibalize Pokemon Sleep or something. I don't know.
Such a strange thing. But
Yeah, yeah.
Alarmo is available now for $100, both online and at Nintendo New York. But there is a catch. You have to be a paid Nintendo Switch Online subscriber to buy it. And that is part of early access. And the early access period will last until early 2025 before everybody will be able to buy it. How do you feel about that approach?
Um, I mean it seems fine. I uh I don't know if I have an opinion on it, to be honest. What do you think? Let me
I,
hear your pitch.
I think that it seems maybe a good sign that Nintendo looks like maybe they're experimenting with ways to limit scalpers or
Hmm.
hardware shortages,
Yeah.
at least in the early days, because there's like, oh, well, for the rest of this year at least, it'll only be people who are paid Nintendo Switch Online subscribers. Presumably, you'll only be able to buy one because otherwise, like, what's stopping a scalper from signing up for a $20 a year membership and then buying
Yeah.
like 20 of them?
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know.
but like Nintendo's always had a hard time with like keeping hardware in stock. So any steps that they're taking in the direction of like trying to fix that, I think is a good sign, especially since we're expecting new like Nintendo console over the next
Mhm.
like 9 months or so.
Yeah, I've always I thought their approach to like the eShop, like the collections, like the special controllers, like the N64 controller, the SNES controller, those were only through a Nintendo account. Like you could My Nintendo, right?
Well, Nintendo Switch
Um,
Online, yeah. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
have to be
yeah.
a subscriber, I think, for that as well. But that makes sense because those, I believe, only work
That's true. Yeah,
with
that's
the Switch
true.
Online catalogs.
Yeah, it does feel a little more uh, alien's not the right word, but it's weird that yeah, there's no Nintendo Switch Online functionality in Alarmo.
I mean, you
For
can download Animal Crossing and
assumably,
Mario Kart
yeah,
8.
assuming, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I do think it's better to. I like that there's some steps involved. You know, you bringing up the scalpers and preventing them because it's so annoying. Nintendo scalpers are the most annoying of all the scalpers, I think.
Yeah.
Because they'll make a $14.99 toy turn into like $100 thing on eBay. Um, Whereas like with big console releases, like even the Switch, I'm like, I get it. People are gonna do their side hustles. You know, back when I had very little income, I might have participated in activities similar to flipping things. I would call myself a scalper. I didn't go to the lengths that a lot of them go to, but you know, people got to pay their bills, whatever. But I definitely think Nintendo has a larger problem with it because there is just such this huge factor of nostalgia at play that scalpers with Nintendo products feels a little more sinister to me for some reason than like you know a PlayStation. I don't know, or no, PlayStation's up there too. Maybe like an Xbox, right? Doesn't have as much nostalgia as say like a PlayStation One themed, you know, PS5 or a Nintendo Switch alarm clock, right? It's yeah, it's interesting.
So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be getting an Alarmo, uh,
I'm not. I'm not. I was
which
hoping you would, so I could see it in action.
I mean, this is like right in my. It should be right in my wheelhouse, but I saw that and I was like, no, no, no need for me to have this.
I'm just imagining like a lot of all of the phone calls and Twitch streams and podcasts that are going to be interrupted by Alarmo's hourly chimes.
Or people just doing sleep streams. Like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm watch me use Alarmo.
yeah.
Like, there's already some streamers that are like, hey, like just watch me sleep, which is the weirdest thing ever.
Somebody's streaming and Alarmo goes off and their stream gets DMCA'd for royalty music. It's funny.
Nintendo also put out a kind of strange social media post. Like, this is just an entirely strange week for Nintendo in terms of news. This was very cryptic and also showing its hand at something. Uh, Nintendo said, "quote Well, first of all, it's called the Nintendo Switch Online Playtest Program, which is going to ask participants to test a new feature for Nintendo Switch Online, and you can actually apply right now on the website. I'm assuming by the time you hear this, because it's first come first serve for people outside of Japan. I'm sure even as we're recording this, it's probably full. I did have one listener say that they were selected for it, and it did not tell them what it was. They just got selected for it. And to apply, you needed to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack subscriber. So that's the more
Oh,
premium
yeah.
subscription. And applications are open till Tuesday. By some miracle, there's like still spots available. But any guesses about what this might be?
It's got to be an achievement system.
You think so?
I saw somebody. I wish I could credit them. I don't. It was one of the first tweets I saw when I woke up. So apologies, but they were just like, I don't know what sort of feature would require this much data. You know, data studies than like an achievement system or potentially a revamp to the friend system and how it works. I don't foresee that happening, but I think more than likely it would be an additive feature, like the like achievements or potentially like a an eShop revamp because there's Switch has a long time had a problem with kind of shovelware appearing on the platform. Um, so either better cataloging for games and search on the eShop, or an achievement system. Those are my two guesses.
So here is the stuff that I'm looking at. Laura Kate Dale, journalist,
Hmm.
got selected for it. First of all, they say that all the spots were claimed within 1 minute of the signups going live. So sorry if you're listening to this and thinking you want to be a part of this, you are too late. But apparently, according to them, we will send you a code around the 21st. So it's a code for something.
Hmm.
Um, and then some digging from Laura, quote, some digging around the HTML seems to apparently suggest the playtest will want players to play docked and on a strong internet connection. My best guess, something like NVIDIA GeForce support to let folks stream PC games to switch over Wi-Fi. And then Stephen Totillo speculates maybe GameCube games over a streaming connection.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm starting to lean in that direction. Like after
Yeah.
a little bit of investigative work by Laura and then speculation by Steven, two pretty well-respected journalists.
Yeah, yeah. Unless it's just like a technical limitation where in order to do this kind of test, you have to be docked for like security authentication reasons. Which journalists know the Switch is a very fun piece of hardware for that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a good idea.
That'd be cool. I mean, maybe it.
Yeah,
What if it's
good hunch.
what if it's Xbox cloud gaming on Switch? I've been speculating that's been
Oh,
coming for 4 or 5 years now.
yeah, I find it interesting that they would make that more of a public test,
Yeah,
though, rather
I don't know,
than
but that would
yeah, I don't
require
know.
a strong internet connection.
It would. Hmm, that's cool.
Maybe
I,
I don't know. We have no idea. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're going to make people sign NDAs, but people are going to leak it once the 21st rolls around and this test
Absolutely,
starts.
yeah,
So we will know. It's not going to be a secret. Um, Maybe Nintendo will get ahead of it, and on like the 20th, they'll announce what it is,
yeah,
just because they know people are going to leak it.
yeah. That's what I would do.
But we have
Not
one.
leak it. I would
You
announce
would
it.
not leak it, yes.
Yeah, I would announce it.
If you were Nintendo, you would announce it,
Exactly.
yes. We have one more Nintendo proper announcement, and that is if you are interested in checking out Super Mario Party Jamboree, as I think both of us are, Alex,
Hmm.
you can go to select Target, Walmart, and Best Buy stores that have a Switch kiosk to play a new 10-minute demo.
That's
And the
cool.
demo is the new Koopathon mode that is you and 19 computer players racing through this like track by completing mini games. And you can also check out Minigame Bay to play 3 different minigame focused modes. And coming out of PAX, and also I guess there was a recent preview event. It's been getting extremely positive previews.
That's great.
I have not had a chance to check it out, but guess what?
Me
It
neither.
comes out next week.
I'm actually. I think I'm gonna buy this. I would really like to have. I'm in the mood for Mario Party parties. It's been a long time. Uh, buddy, he actually might listen to this podcast. Ryan Othman. He was a Game Informer listener, but even before that, my old website that I ran for 5 to 6 years, OK Beast. Ryan was initially a fan and then became a friend. And the last party I went to was at his house, and that was in oof, 20. It was pre-COVID. Um,
So last Mario Party.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it's been since a whole pandemic since I've had a folks over to play Mario Party. So I think that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm always down for a Mario Party.
Yeah, absolutely.
But from Nintendo to Sega, we go in the news section. I'm reading this over on IGN. Takashi Iizuka, the creative officer at Sonic Team, says that he does not think Sonic Team will be abandoning older consoles anytime soon. He says, quote, as a market, we have the high-end machines, high-end consoles. Coming out with those consoles, we feel that we can make newer Sonic games that can express the speed of Sonic and with much better gaming UI as well. However, we want to support the lower spec consoles as well. So even though the PS5 Pro is coming out or new innovations or technology are coming out, we feel that it is important to support the lower spec consoles and let many of the users keep playing Sonic.
Hmm.
So this has been a trend for this generation. I think a lot of people have been generally pretty upset about the fact that most of the major games are still coming out on PS4 and Xbox One, even like 4 years into these new consoles' life cycles.
Yeah.
How do you feel about developers still supporting, like, frankly, outdated hardware?
Yeah, I mean, as a big PC player, developers are always on the PC side of things trying to cater to, the new 40 series from Nvidia versus there's plenty of folks out there still rocking like a 1060 or,
I have a 1080,
a
so
1080.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I had a 1080 for a long time. Um, and to me, it's just a natural. I don't think we're ever going to get away from developers having to cater. I will say third party developers, like any developer that is developing for PC, is always going to have to
Scale it.
scale it. And for the most part, my hobbyist game dev knowledge, right? I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. I've gotten into, I've experiment with Unreal and Unity. Um, it really seems like it is more of like a, it never seems like you can use, there's technology called LODs, like they're levels of detail, and any major game engine can take a high poly. So you start with a high poly model, like the sculpt of a game asset. Like let's say Mario, right? They sculpt Mario. He has millions of polygons potentially, and then before it goes into any game engine, you retopologize the model, and essentially that means you, instead of millions of polygons, you turn it to thousands of polygons,
Hmm.
and then you bake on the impression of the high poly model, and through normal maps and light maps and bump maps, this low poly figure looks high poly, but it's not really. And then there's varying degrees of that. So from that top model, you go down 4 or 5 levels of detail in some games, and that's how you know game developers get around the various. That's why you don't see much post processing on Switch games compared to like a PS5. You'll see a lot less fog and LODs and like lower level of LODs in general. But so there are processes in place to scale these games, and so I've never really subscribed to the idea that those older consoles are bringing down the quality. Maybe perhaps it is definitely taking away bandwidth from the development teams.
Well, one thing
Um,
to that point though, I think that Sega or Sonic Team has actually come out, and since we're talking about Izuka giving the quote here,
yeah.
I think that he has actually said, or somebody on Sonic Team has actually said, the reason there was so much pop in Sonic Frontiers was because they had to take into account the Switch, and
Oh.
even that affected like the PS5 and Xbox and PC versions.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There's some the. Yeah. I clearly know nothing. I'm dumb.
I mean, maybe that
And
was also just like a YouTuber for all I know, but I do remember hearing that, like, because that was one of the big things about Sonic Frontiers was even playing it on PS5, there was a ton of pop in.
huh.
And from my understanding, it was related to having to develop it to run on Switch as well.
Yeah. Maybe I bet there is some kind of, yeah. That's a fair point. Um, I'm sure. Like I have not published a game before. I know like a couple of pillars of how to make a game, but none of them come together for me, right? So I'm sure as you get into like pulling in all these processes together, it probably does change. If for nothing else, taking away bandwidth from a team working on a next gen only version of a game versus having to give people to work on the last gen, that certainly will affect a game. But yeah, I don't know. That's my thoughts on it.
All right. Well, I mean, I would like to see them move forward and just really start pushing the technical limitations of these newer systems. Like think about like when we were at the tail end of like the PS3 and we were getting like The Last of Us, and it was like, oh my, this is running on a PlayStation 3. Like it looked like a true like next gen game, but that was just because Naughty Dog, who are like the masters of squeezing out every ounce of power out of the PlayStation system that they're developing for, they were like true masters of the PS3 by then, because they had put out like all the Uncharted games and everything. So I would like to see us start getting to that point where it's like we really start seeing what the PS5 and Xbox Series X are capable of. But at the same time, this age of backwards compatibility and like in Xbox's case, the universal Windows platform, it is supremely scalable because the hardware is so similar to the past hardware, and the the
Mm,
operating systems are so similar, and right, like intentionally so, right? Like they are developed with ease of compatibility in mind. They're trying to become more like PCs, where it's like if you buy, like you said, if you have a 1080 now and you upgrade to like a state of the art graphics card, you're still going to be able to run all the same games. It's just going to run better.
yeah,
But yeah, there is something to be said about like us not moving forward, and also like developers want to reach as many gamers as possible, and the
absolutely.
numbers outside of the Switch have shown that this generation has underwhelmed in terms of sales for both PlayStation and Xbox.
I would much rather a publisher, a development team work on last gen versions of games if that sacrifices something for the next gen version of the game or the potential of what it could have been, if that means that they bring in money and continue to exist as a business.
Mm-hmm. Agreed,
Yeah,
100%. Especially given the recent and current climate of the games industry. I'm with
yeah,
you.
yeah.
We also got another Sega announcement that really kind of demonstrates the company isn't resting on its laurels when it comes to expanding out into movie and TV. Obviously, we have Sonic the Hedgehog 3 coming out in theaters this December. We also have the live-action Yakuza Like a Dragon series arriving on Amazon Prime Video this month.
Wait, really? I missed that.
How did you miss
Wow.
that?
Dude, I don't know how I missed that. I'm literally pulling a tab of that up.
Yeah, it looks
That's
awesome
amazing.
too. And we also know that Sega has a Streets of Rage movie in development.
That's cool.
The company has now announced it's making a movie based on the Shinobi franchise.
Oh my
So
God, that's awesome.
that'll be fun. It's going to be distributed under the Universal banner, and it'll be directed by Sam Hargrave, who was the second unit director, so basically like an assistant director for movies like Atomic Blonde, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Deadpool 2, The Mandalorian. And he was also director of the Extraction movies and the stunt coordinator for like a ton of films.
That's
And
awesome.
the screenplay is being written by Ken Kobayashi, whose biggest credit I saw was the 2021 series Hit Monkey. And he also wrote an episode of this year's Sunny, which I've not seen. And it'll be produced by Mark Platt, who produced La La Land, Bridge of Spies, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Drive, and the entire live theater run of Wicked,
Wow.
as well as the upcoming Wicked movies. And then Adam Siegel, who worked with Platt on Scott Pilgrim, Drive, and several others. And then Dimitri M. Johnson, who is actually executive producing the upcoming Tomb Raider show on Netflix, which I saw reviews hit this morning for that as we're recording this, and apparently are pretty positive. And then Toru Nakahara is working with them from the Sega side, and then Mike Goldberg and Timothy I. Stevenson will executive produce. So very cool news out of there. Hopefully it all comes together. It seems like a pretty decent team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah, so Shinobi, looking forward to that. But like we have Yakuza Like a Dragon right around the corner.
I'm
Sega's
excited for
making
that, man.
some big moves into movie and TV.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if the success of the Sonic movies have anything to say about it, these will also perform pretty well and find their audience.
And I mean, those are the right franchises for them to expand. I mean, they've also been doing. I mean, I guess this wasn't really Sega because I think these all happened. I guess maybe the latest one, but like there's the Persona animes as well. Um,
Yeah.
I've been exploring my Crunchyroll subscription a little bit, and all of those are on there. The Persona 4 and Persona 5 animes. So I'm gonna start watching those. I was watching them when they were subbed, but I think I saw it they're dubbed now, so I'm
Oh, that's
gonna
cool.
enjoy it that way.
Yeah,
But yeah, Sega making big moves in the realm of movies and TV.
it's cool.
But here's I talk so much about Sega. I'm obviously Nintendo. A studio that I talk a lot about is Digital Eclipse. Love
Mm-hmm.
that studio, and I've made it clear how excited I am for Tetris Forever, which is their upcoming Tetris collection, as you might imagine. We got the full 14 game list for the collection, and wouldn't you know it, it turns out it's a lot of Tetris. So the ones that are included on this are the original Tetris, which was released in 1984. Tetris, which was released on Apple II. Tetris, which was released on Famicom. Hatris, released on the Famicom. Tetris 2 plus Bomb Bliss, released on Famicom. Hatris, as released on the NES. Hatris, released on Game Boy. Super Bomb Bliss, released on Game Boy. Super Bomb Bliss DX. Super Tetris 2. And Bomb Bliss, sorry. Released on Super Famicom. Tetris Battle Gaiden. Super Tetris 2 plus Bomb Bliss, and you get the picture. It's a lot of Super Tetris, Hatris, Bomb Bliss, a lot of Tetris stuff. And they also said that more games may be added after launch. And it's also worth reminding people that Tetris Forever has a documentary about Tetris built into it. So it's kind of similar to Atari 50, where it's meant to be like an interactive museum. And it's set to hit before the end of this year. So
I will play that and watch it.
I
will experience that. Yeah,
I will absolutely be seated, as the kids say these days.
Yeah.
God, I'm old. But finally, Alex, maybe the weirdest announcement in a week full of weird announcements. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of its classic album, Dookie, Green Day has announced it is releasing songs from the album on 15 new formats inspired by the 90s. The formats include floppy disk, a doorbell, a Big Mouth Billy Bass, a music box, a Fisher-Price record, Teddy Ruxpin, a mini disc, and an answering machine. It's called Dookie Demastered, and each format has a different song attributed to it. And the reason I bring this up on a Nintendo podcast is because the one that caught my attention is they're releasing one of their biggest hits in their entire career, Welcome to Paradise, via Game Boy.
Yep.
So basically, each one of these is super limited. You have to enter a drawing to have a chance to buy it. And if you win, the crappy part is you have to enter your credit card into this website that I've never been to before. But if you, and I did this, I tried to get in the raffle for the Game Boy version of Welcome to Paradise. And if you win, you're automatically charged Welcome to Paradise on Game Boy. You can actually go on this website, by the way, and listen to all the versions on your computer. But the novelty is having the physical thing, right?
Absolutely.
So Welcome to Paradise comes on a Game Boy cartridge as a 3-minute, 17-second runtime. It's compatible with Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. And it features 8-bit sound, so it does sound like a Game Boy game. It doesn't try to like play Welcome to Paradise on like a real version of the song. There are only 25 of these being made, so you'll need to get pretty lucky. But if you win, $39 for the cartridge. And also fittingly, I noticed that their song Pulling Teeth from Dookie is available on an electric toothbrush.
Okay.
So perfect.
Yeah.
Which of these most caught your eye? I think I sent you the link beforehand.
I did, yeah. Certainly the Game Boy. And there was also where to go. I had it in the list here. I thought the answering machine was cool.
Yeah.
And then the probably the floppy disk.
But how would you even play that?
I'm sure there are adapters out there. I'm sure it's like plug in one adapter into another adapter into another adapter, and you can get it to work.
I mean, there's got to just be like a USB floppy disk drive,
I'm
right?
sure.
Like,
yeah, probably.
There's USB versions of every adapter at this point, I feel like, or USB-C.
The only one I want is the Game Boy.
That's what I signed up for. We'll see if I win it. I highly doubt it.
This is going to be like $1,000 on eBay.
Hey man, if this unemployment goes on much longer, you might see me becoming one of those scalpers too.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, but we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to be reacting to some hot takes from the All Things Nintendo listener community. We will be right back. Last week, I did a listener Q&A episode, and I enjoyed it so much, we're actually going to go right back to the community well for this episode.
Love it.
I put out a call on the All Things Nintendo Patreon and the All Things Nintendo Community Discord, asking for my listeners to submit their Nintendo-related hot takes. And Alex, you and I are going to react to them. This segment was actually inspired by a conversation on Discord, started by Brook Obscura. So shout out to them for this. Here's how I want it to go. First, I want to get your spiciness level out of 5, with 5 being the hottest take and 1 being a take that you think is probably pretty commonly held and not all that spicy. And then I want us to react to it. So let me bring up my document here that I have all these hot takes, and we will go from here. So since Brook was the one that kicked us off, this was the take that they kicked us off with. I think Super Mario Bros. 3 is overrated. It's fine, but it's not even my favorite of the original trilogy. Our version, I'm assuming the US version, of Super Mario Bros. 2 holds up way better, especially since it was never copied. Now, 8 worlds, each in a different biome, where you fight against the Koopalings and finally Bowser, describes at least half of the 2D platformers in the series. So first of all, 1 to 5 spicy level.
I'm gonna say 3.
Okay.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. I'm gonna go. That's a 4 for me, because Super Mario Bros. 3, yes, a lot of games in the series have carried forward that formula, but this was the first one. You have to realize that was the first one in the series to do like the different biomes, the Koopalings and everything. It did a lot of innovating, and I always think, I mean, the debate has always come down to what is the best 2D Mario game of all time, Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World. People know where I stand on that one, but I always think that Mario 3 ran so Mario World could sprint, because I don't even think it was like it could walk so it could run, because I think Mario 3 is also one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time. That's why I think this is a pretty spicy take, but not to the point of absurdity. Like, I understand what Brook is saying here.
Of course.
I disagree with it.
Yeah, I think I disagree as well. I just don't know where I have no range for where our I have no context for what else, you know, this round of hot takes is going to bring us. So I'm going to stick to 3 just as my normal, right? Like that's a pretty spicy take, and from there I'm going to say, you know, we'll go higher or lower. I think that's going to be my
All right, well, let's jump over to Three Swords Sama on Discord. They say, and by the way, a lot of these people have submitted multiple hot takes, so we may be circling back here, time dependent. Three Swords Sama said, remakes are overwhelmingly good for gaming and gamers, even if they don't add much to the original game. I think this because it's a low stakes way for Nintendo to produce games that will sell well and introduce people to games they haven't played, which then allows Nintendo to take risks. Think EMEO, which is the Nintendo Famicom Detective Club game that just came out, to create even more niche/unique games.
I think that's a 2.
2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. I think that there is a backlash against remakes. And I don't personally have that. Like, I like a good remake. I love modernization of a game that maybe hasn't aged particularly well, but there's a lot of value there. And I agree. Like, you know, those types of things can sometimes help keep the lights on at a studio, so they can, you know, try to be more financially independent and create stuff that is, you know, more experimental.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So yeah, 2 for me. I'll agree with you there. Yeah. All right. This is a very strongly worded hot take. This is from Emil Nathanson on Discord. They say Nintendo should be legally required to lower the prices of its digital games as time goes on and as they sell. Breath of the Wild on Wii U should have been $5 when that store was closing.
I'm going to say that's a 4.
I'm going to go 3.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, the legally obligated or legally required, that's a little strong. But
that makes it the hot take.
The sentiment, I think, is a 3, right? Where it's like, yeah, before like the Wii U or 3DS eShop closes, maybe just like make everything super cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I also understand why they don't. And
they want you to go buy it on Switch.
Yeah. So there are several responses actually that some of these people, as you might imagine, when a hot take is delivered and a hot take is rendered, they sometimes elicit responses within the community. So Three Swords Sama and Brook Obscura, the people we've started with, have responded to this. Three Swords Sama says, I definitely agree Nintendo should have more sales, but they have a stranglehold on their IP, as they should. I understand lack of sales for physicals, but the full price digital is tough to swallow for games that are much older. That being said, I prefer that over other companies that nickel and dime you for everything or produce a quote definitive version of the game 2 years later. And then Brooke Obscura said, I like that Nintendo games rarely go on sale and hold their value for years after release. I won't hesitate to buy a game at launch because I know several years from now the price will still be the same. To contrast, a Ubisoft game will see a price dip a few months after launch and years later will routinely be on sale for a fraction of the original price.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your perspective. Are you to me, I don't mind if things drop in price. I am fine with paying for the I'm fine paying a higher price for like early adoption. Um but I could totally I see where they're coming from with I want my things to remain valuable. And that is always nice. A nice feeling, but practically I don't I guess if you want to sell them but other than that, yeah, I like when more people can come in at lower costs. Like the feeling of like when you've been talking about a game forever with a friend and tell them how good it is, and then it goes on sale finally, and they pick it up finally, and then I'm having that experience right now with Alex Stadnick, actually, former game and former video editor, and he's now playing a game that I love, and that would
What
have
game?
been Jedi Survivor.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
game.
yeah. And getting the joy of having him text me, the parts that he's at. I'm like, oh yeah. So I am a fan of like when games go on sale for that kind of thing. It just makes it easier for everyone.
Mad Genie over on Discord. I'm actually combining a few of their comments here into one long hot take because I
Okay.
think it's thematically consistent here. Uh, they say, this is an abridged quote here. Taking down emulators is ultimately hurting Nintendo's history. If they aren't making money off the things that aren't selling anymore / have little to no presence on their hardware anymore, why remove the only way for most people that are able to play it? Like, yeah, piracy is morally questionable, but there's some reason for doing it too. And then they continued in a different comment. Uh, Piracy is morally good if there is no feasible way to give the companies money for the game, mostly for if the game is fully unavailable anywhere through either physical releases, digital codes, or subscription services. And then I think this second hot take that they submitted is kind of in the same thought process. Nintendo should make it possible to download all games purchased to your Nintendo ID / My Nintendo account on all newer hardware. This includes Wii / DSiWare, Virtual Console for Wii, Wii U, and 3DS. Purchased full games, demos, etc. should not be system locked. How are you feeling? How's that strike you?
I'm gonna say a 2.
Okay.
I think that's like a pretty reasonable request. But it's definitely not what's happening right now. So maybe that makes it, I don't know. It seems like that's the sentiment that everyone is probably gonna agree with.
Yeah, I mean, game preservation is a big problem in this industry, and I think that you know emulators allow people to find and experience games that they could not otherwise because either it wasn't ever released in the US, it wasn't it's $1,000 to buy that game now, or like you just you can't access the hardware or whatever. And it's a tricky situation, right? Because there are definitely people who abuse emulation and ROMs
Yeah.
for illegal purposes, and that stuff is not something that we really want to condone on this show.
No.
But yeah, from like a preservation perspective, I fully think that there are use cases that it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I particularly like those really old games that okay, I can either emulate this to check it out or because there's no way for me to purchase it anywhere from Nintendo, or I can pay $300 for the game on eBay, you know,
Which will not go to Nintendo.
which would not go to Nintendo. Yeah.
It'll go to one of those scalpers we were talking about.
Exactly. Collectors is what we call them. But yeah, I think in those cases it is, you know, becomes less of a moral conundrum. But yeah, any of the recent stuff, my rule has always been like, if you can buy it, buy it. Like support the developer and the publisher. I've never pirated a game that can be purchased. So that's kind of my stance on it.
All right, we got some Zelda takes here, Alex.
All right, I'm ready.
Double Barrel 25 on Discord says, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are bad games because of the weapon breaking mechanic. It is dumb, annoying, and turns the game into an inventory management problem to be solved rather than a fun action adventure to explore.
I disagree.
What's your rating?
Yeah. I mean, it's the one I've heard before. I'm gonna say 3.
I'm gonna go with a 2 because I mean maybe a 2 in 2017 because I felt like that was a commonly held criticism.
Yeah.
Back when Breath of the Wild first came out, and then I think everybody kind of came around on it. But aside from Double Barrel 25, apparently,
the only person who still doesn't like it.
Nobody else has a problem with it anymore.
Yeah, it's just like it is the reason that system propels you to explore the world.
I agree.
Yeah,
and I think that I'm gonna go. It was a 2 in 2017. I think that was a pretty commonly held take back in 2017. In 2024, I think it's a 3 though.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people have come around on that. And I mean, you know that Breath of the Wild's my favorite game ever, so I'm not going to agree with you that it's a bad game. But
it is my number 1 or number 2 on any given day.
Yeah, and I understand why people don't like it. But we did get some responses on this one as well. So Three Sword Sama responded to this thread as well, saying, the weapon breaking mechanic is actually a mechanic I listed as one of my favorite Zelda gimmicks in another thread. So you know that Three Sword Sama is about it. Because a few weeks ago we did definitive ranking of our favorite Zelda gimmicks in the history of the series, and the community was doing their own definitive rankings, and Three Sword Sama said that weapon breaking was actually one of their favorites. So he disagrees, or they disagree. And then Pratable on Discord responds, management, I just hoarded everything, which fair enough.
Yeah.
And then Nintendo 101 says, this thread is getting too hot. So I think that there was some pushback on that take, but thank you Double Barrel 25 for submitting that. I will say that I originally was not a fan of the weapon breaking, and the comment and the perspective that former Game Informer editor Kyle Hilliard gave to me was, think of the weapon like durability almost like bullets in a gun. And it's like you have a set number of things, and then you either have to find another one to replace it, or you find like new more ammo in like, reinforcing it or whatever. So
yeah,
that kind of helped me change my perspective of like, oh my God, I found the sword that I love and now it's broken and I can't get it back. There are ways to, shift that perspective. And then of course, like, the Master Sword kind of defies some of those things, but I like the way it encouraged me to experiment. And then as you get later on in the games, it doesn't really affect you as much, right? Because then you have a pretty big inventory and you have a lot of pretty strong weapons as well.
Yeah.
And in Tears of the Kingdom, it was all about those fusions, fusing. Like I just started stockpiling like monster parts and then fusing like the strongest ones to like swords and everything.
Yeah.
And that made it so it was a complete shift on how that weapon breaking mechanic worked. So I'm going to say it's a 3, and I'm going to disagree with it at the same time.
Yeah.
Nintendo 101 over on Discord, another Zelda take. They say, I hate Majora's Mask. There, I said it. I like to complete things, and the 10-minute timer was killing me. I literally only went through one cycle and said it wasn't for me. I actually pre-ordered the game from 2 different places just to make sure I would get it day 1. I was very disappointed. Looking back, I wish I would have kept both copies and never opened them, with the money sign emoji. And then, first, before we get like a response there, what is your thought on that?
I think it's a 3.
Okay.
Maybe a 4, just for how strongly worded it is. Like one loop, you only did one. I've never played the game, so I know it's a thing I need to rectify at some point, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm going to go with a 2, actually, because I held this belief for a while. I didn't say I hated it, but I also like played a few loops in the time loop mechanic of it, and I just came away. I'm like, it doesn't really do it for me. I was not a fan of it. And then I finally forced myself last year to
Yeah, I
sit down
remember.
and play it on Nintendo Switch Online, and I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite, but I appreciated what they did. But I understand why this isn't for everybody. I understand why this game would not be every Zelda fan's cup of tea. I think that a lot of folks have come around on it. I'm going to go 3 actually with this, even though
There you go.
I feel like we're doing a lot of 3s in this scale.
We are, but your community's just got to bring it. We haven't seen a 5, so I'm not going to say it's a 5.
So Brook Obscura responded. They said, Majora's Mask is one of my favorite games of all time, in particular the N64 version. The 3DS remake should have just focused on the quality of life features, but it went too far in changing the core mechanics that made character movement and unique boss battles fun.
I think Brooks is actually one of the more aggressive hot takes we've had. So I kind of want to retroactively score her or score them a 4.
And then Brooke also said, far more, in response to only doing it one cycle, they say, far too many people don't allow themselves to get immersed in the world. Once you do, the 3-day cycle actually serves to enhance everything from the story to the gameplay. There's also the inverted Song of Time, which slows the flow of time considerably, giving you roughly 2.5 hours before reaching the end of the 3-day cycle. So just additional insight into why, like, you may want to give it another shot. But yeah, that is Nintendo 101 on Discord. Then we go to the Spooky Ginger on Discord. They say, I don't know if I have a hot take on a game, but I'm really torn about the handle aspect of the GameCube. On one hand, did anyone ever just walk around with their GameCube and tote it like that, all naked to the elements? Not like they didn't hold up well, but that seems like you're asking to drop it. On the other hand, I like the idea of portability and practicality.
I think that is just such a well-mannered Discord message that I think it's a 1.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a 1 because it is kind of like a Seinfeld bit. Like, what's the deal with the handle?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a hot take, but it is an interesting observation. Like, that's like a weird part of Nintendo's history. Like, why does this GameCube have this is
Yeah.
not a Switch. Like, this is not a portable piece of hardware. It's a disc based, by the way. Like, so like if you have a disc in there and you're
Oh
walking around with it,
God.
you're gonna
Yeah.
scratch the crap out of that disc.
Yeah.
And there is a handle on a console that, like, indicating that they want you to just carry this console around. Like, I don't know anybody who did that.
Yeah. I've got a GameCube across from me right now. I think the only I mean I've certainly carried a GameCube by the handle multiple times, but not to go somewhere. It's like I bought
You're
it at the
moving.
I'm moving, or I bought it at a shop, or something, or I'm taking it to a friend's house, but like not even that. I don't know if I've done that. But you know what I mean? Like I'm not carrying
I
it
mean,
around as part of my it's like
in
it's an event.
college, I
It's an
would take
event.
it from one dorm room to another sometimes,
Yeah.
but that's about it, right? Like, it's just such a weird design choice. Remember
It's just like
the
a once in the blue moon kind of thing.
the famous picture? I think it was Paris Hilton at like the GameCube launch, and she has like one of the GameCubes, and she's just like carrying it like a purse almost.
It's so funny.
Such a weird thing. So then we have Cassandra over on Twitter. Her hot take is the Wii U was a great console. It just had terrible marketing.
I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go a 3.
I'm
2
gonna
or a
go
3?
a 2.
Yeah.
I almost want to go a 1.5 on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
But
I think I'm 2
we
as well.
established a 5-point scale. We did not
Yeah,
establish a 10-point scale, so there's no
yeah.
halves here.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go 2 on this because I
Oh
agree the Wii
my.
U was a great console, and yes, it did have terrible marketing. I've defended so many times how great the library is, and we're seeing that when they bring all these games to Switch.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
the number one selling game on Switch is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is just an enhanced version of a Wii U game.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, like, there's several amazing Switch games that have been, or Wii U games that have been brought over to Switch.
Yeah, yeah. It's a reasonable take.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2.
Yeah.
All right, so we have profit. How about a few Alarmo
Oh,
hot
yeah,
takes here?
yeah.
Prof and Dev Play Games on Patreon says Alarmo via Nintendo Switch Online only is a test run to offer Switch 2 to Nintendo Switch Online members first.
That's a 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Although it could, I mean, I mentioned it at the news segment where it was like this might be them like figuring out some ways to get around scalpers.
Yeah, I don't foresee them doing a whole console launch through that system though.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, I think it
I
would
think
be,
you hurt. Well, I guess like the early birds, right?
but like the ones that are really like, staying up, like monitoring Wario 64's Twitter feed and refreshing and making sure that they can get
Mhm.
the console at launch. A lot of them are probably subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online.
It's true. Yeah. They probably
I don't
got
know.
some deal on it years ago where they have Nintendo Switch Online for like 5 years or something.
I certainly did that with Game Pass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably a 4 for me,
Yeah.
as well. That's an interesting idea though. Like I could see them doing it with other things. I think a console launch might be a little strong though.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly accessories, I could see that happening. Or like a new kind of dock, which would be an accessory.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How about the return of the hot take kid, Brooke Obscura here,
Uh-huh.
on the subject of Alarmo. It's a little early to know how hot this take is, but I am appalled with Nintendo at the announcement of Alarmo. Honestly, it makes my skin crawl. It's one thing if you're combining technology with accredited studies and working with people who are experts in the field of sleep study to create a product that may actually have some health benefits based on well-tested science. It's another thing if you're an entertainment brand trying to proliferate a very sensitive area of players' lives, especially with a product aimed at children, to inundate them with music and sound effects to bolster your IPs. They go on. Alarmo is targeted squarely at children from the product name to the toy-esque design. From a psychological standpoint, I find it quite immoral because if Nintendo is what you hear when you're drifting off to sleep, and the first thing you hear when you wake up, that will undeniably have an impact on your mind. It's also a device being used to track the sleep data of children, which is doubly unsettling.
That's a 5.
Coming in strong.
That's a 5. I don't entirely disagree though.
Yeah, it's a weird case where it's like, yes, that's a very strong take, but I see why that would trouble someone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any brand, like those are all valid critiques of any brand doing this kind of thing, not just Nintendo. And I think I tend to, my instinct was like pull a punch because I'm like, well, I love Nintendo, but it's a solid critique, Brooke Obscura.
It almost makes me think of like kind of the insidious Lego thing that they did with the Mario one, the Mario Lego, where like, the Mario talks and it also can be updated via Wi-Fi. And like there was at one point when it was just Mario, they had him like looking around. They did like a firmware update to him, and he started crying out for Luigi. And it was like, oh man, that is manipulative. And then they announced like a Luigi figure like a few weeks later.
Oh
So
my
like
God.
Mario was like sad that Luigi wasn't by him, and it was like the kids are like, we need to buy Luigi now. And it's like, man, that is like
That's
manipulative.
yeah, that is. Wow.
So I get that. So yeah, I could see that that concern being extremely valid. But yeah, I think I'm with you. It's a 5. Just like the strength, the oomph.
Yeah.
I think Brook Obscura has the throne right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. We'll do like 1 or 2 more here.
Okay.
Um, Chain Whippin on Patreon has a 5-pack of hot takes.
Okay.
Do you want a Zelda, a Splatoon, or a Mario take?
Splatoon.
Okay. Chain Whippin on Patreon says Splatoon would have been a $20 to $30 game on any other platform. They filled it out eventually, but it was pretty bare at first.
I'm gonna say that's a 4. A 3 or a 4?
I'm gonna say it is a 2.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Because the first Splatoon was
Splatoon 1.
extremely bare bones.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That was one of my main critiques when I reviewed that back in the day when Splatoon 1 came out. I reviewed all 3 Splatoon games for Game Informer now that I think of it. Yeah. Splatoon was a bare bones game, and I think that if it wasn't a Nintendo game, you're right, it probably would have been a $20 to $30 like AA game.
Yeah.
Like, look at Knockout City. I think that was like a $30 or $40 game before
Knockout.
it went free to play.
Yeah, and that game was excellent.
I mean, that was the closest analog we have to like a non-Nintendo exclusive Splatoon style game.
Yeah.
And that game ruled.
I love that
Rest
game.
in peace, Knockout City.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved that game. But yeah, I'm gonna say that was a 2 on my my hot take spicy meter.
I like that. I like that.
All right, so Jason Thompson on Patreon, who I believe was the one that actually got into the playtest that we talked about earlier. Here's a deep cut take for you. Quest 64 was an awesome game on the N64. If you know, you know. I've never played Quest 64, but I've heard people defend this game.
Yeah, I know the box art quite well.
Yeah, it's a classic box art for
I
N64.
saw it at Blockbuster all the time. Read it to me one more time.
Quest 64 was an awesome game on the N64. If you know, you know.
I'm gonna give that a 1 or a 2.
Okay,
I'll give it a 2.
I'll do a 3 just because for a long time people have kind of crapped on that game. But I do feel like the pendulum has swung back the other way at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's do one more here. So we have Zach Bencall over on Patreon. They have 2 takes here. Do you want nostalgia or do you want Pokemon?
Pokemon.
Let's do it. Zach says Pokemon hasn't really gotten worse over time. People have just gotten tired of the formula. Sword and Shield is really not that different from classics like Ruby Sapphire. It's just on a more modern console, so people aren't as patient with its shortcomings. Pokemon has always made weird decisions and has been cash grabby. The first ever gen still had 2 versions. The outcry has just gotten louder over time.
I think it's a reasonable take. I'll give it a 3.
I'm going to say 2. However, I agree, but it's also like there has to be something to be said for meaningful evolution of a franchise. And I think Scarlet and Violet was the attempt there. And unfortunately, from a technical perspective, they didn't really stick the landing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that the criticism that they were just sticking too close to that original formula is very valid. And I think all Pokemon games are still very good. It's just that they weren't evolving for, excuse the pun there, they weren't evolving for a very long time. And now that they are finally starting to evolve, people are like, wait, this sucks. And, I think I'm in agreement, but I'm still going to give it a 2.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. So do you want one more or do you want to wrap up with the eShop gem here?
I'm dying to talk about my eShop gem.
All right, let's do that.
Thank you to
everybody. Thank you to everybody who submitted a hot take. I still have a good amount of them, so maybe we'll dust this off alongside another listener Q&A episode in the near future because I didn't even get to like half of the listener emails last week, and we still probably have say about 40% of the hot takes still boiling here.
Dang,
So
love it.
yeah, thanks for sending those in, everybody who did. But Alex, you always bring the heat. Speaking of hot takes, when it comes to your eShop gems, you've given us some really good picks over the years. What is your eShop gem of the week?
Well, thank you for that compliment. I do feel like I like to recommend good games, and so I feel like I've always done that on the show. This next game is called Castaway. It's from the developer Canary Games, Johan Vignay, the solo developer. And he previously worked on Lunark, which people might be familiar with. But
Oh, nice.
Castaway is a very short, like hour-long micro Zelda game. It is $7.99 on the eShop. And it reads, embark on an action-packed adventure in Castaway, diving players into pixelated and retro universe. Assume the role of Martin, whose spaceship crash-landed on an uncharted island where his faithful pet was taken by hostile creatures. Retrieve your weapons and venture out to rescue your kidnapped companion in this endearing and unexpectedly dynamic world. Beat the 3 bosses in the concise and delightful story mode to unlock the thrilling survivor mode, which you ascend a 50-floor tower, with each level presenting increasingly challenging trials. So
It looks like Link's Awakening in the art style.
very much inspired by Link's Awakening, and it's a really solid game. It is, I think it's worth playing. Selfishly, I have a video game documentary coming out about this game.
Oh, nice.
And so
Look at you just synergizing your eShop gem of the week with a plug.
I know.
I should just kick you off right now.
You should. No, but I truly believe the reason I reached out about doing a doc on this game is that I thought it just looked really cool. We don't get all that many, top-down Zelda clones. Not even that's, you know what I mean by, it's not a clone, but for lack of a better word. I know we had Mini Shoot this year that got a lot of love. Castaway is a much shorter, again, a micro game, and specifically it is aimed, in my talks with the developer Johan, he really wants it to be a game for kids to be able to enjoy. It's he really envisions it being a game that you can play with your kids, a parent and a kid together. But it's a really cool game regardless. As somebody with no kids, I also enjoyed playing it. It's short and sweet and cheap. So
yeah, $8, and it came out in August, so it's a relatively new game as well.
It is. So check it out. I like the art style a lot. I think Johan does excellent pixel art, and I love when developers make short, small games that are bite-sized. I always welcome it. So yeah, more of that, please.
Yeah, so Castaway, I've added it to my wish list based on your recommendation. It very much looks like the top-down Zelda games that we have talked about over the course of this show. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
And before we wrap up, also for those who are not $10 patrons and are wondering what is happening over on All Things Gamers, this week I had former Prima Games editor Jesse Vitelli, your friend and mine.
Yeah.
He gave his full Metaphor Refantasio review. I gave my thoughts as well. I also gave my impressions of my first several hours with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and reacted to the news surrounding Halo and Alien Isolation 2. So if you need a reminder, All Things Gamers is a weekly show available exclusively to the $10 members of the All Things Nintendo podcast. And then before we wrap up again, I noticed mid-recording, it hit me to check my spreadsheet because I'm not good about remembering these things. But this week actually represents the 3-year anniversary of All Things Nintendo.
Oh, awesome.
So I just want to take a moment and, kind of thank the listeners here because, this was just a show that I pitched while I was still at Game Informer.
Yeah.
It originally was pitched as a column, and Andrew Reiner was like, I think you should do it as a podcast instead. So I recorded a pilot that nobody's ever heard, gave it to him, and he was like, yeah, go for it. Like, this is awesome. And so I did that first episode with, I believe it was Ben Reeves and Alex Stadnick,
Mm-hmm.
talking about the Switch OLED. And, it's been an amazing, fun journey ever since. Taking it independent has been amazing. I've loved getting to know my community better. And I really appreciate everybody who has either appeared on the show or just listened to it or supported it. Like, it means a lot, and very excited to have reached this milestone.
Man, time flies. I remember filming the OLED review video with Alex, and that would have
Yeah.
been like probably same week that you were launching All Things Nintendo.
Yeah,
Doesn't feel like 3 years.
it does not. But here we are. And, this is 157 episodes deep. So
Wow.
we're still going. I remember when I was making the file names for uploading it, I put 3 zeros, like, right, like 000, like three digits.
Yeah.
And I was like, that might be being optimistic that I'm going to make it into triple digits, but I'm going to do that as like my goal. And here we are, closer to 200 than we are 100. So thank you to everybody who has continued listening to All Things Nintendo. And thanks to people like you, Alex, who come on here and make it so I'm not just talking to myself for an hour and a half every single week.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, as always, and I'm looking forward to be on the next episode. Not the next episode, but my next visit.
Your next appearance, absolutely.
Which will happen eventually.
Hopefully it won't be too long.
No,
it's always great having you on. Thank you for joining me for this episode.
All right, bye, y'all.
Thank you so much to everyone for listening. As you know, the Patreon and associated Discord servers are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. But you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com. Hit me up on social media at Brian P. Shea. Coincidentally, at Brian P. Shea is also my YouTube channel name. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, it would mean a lot. Alex, where can people find you online?
You can find me at It's Van Aken on social media, on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and you can follow Viewport. Viewport Video is usually the URL on all sorts of platforms: Patreon, YouTube, Viewport Video. Go check it out.
I also restarted my Blue Sky account just recently because Threads has become a nightmare of engagement bait and just awfulness. So find me on Blue Sky now as well. All my social links are in the show notes. But that is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we truly wrap up this episode of All Things Nintendo, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons of this podcast: Aaron Smith, Abdullah, Elena R., Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Brooke Obscura, Chaps My Ass, Chris Callie, Colton Bredlau, Dan Norman, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jackal, Jacob Nahin, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joseph Jury, Joshua Duproy, Justin Childress, Cody Gibson, Marshall Thompson, Megan S., Michael Anderson, Nintendo 101, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Scott Matthews, Sir Phobos, Smithy Poo, Tom Grinnell, Tux DC, Wham Bam Sam the Gaming Man, Zach Marcus, Zachary Pliggy, and Zach Three Sword Sama. Thank you so much for your support over the various months that I've been doing this. It means so much to me, and it helps me continue doing this show.